All right, ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand and join me in the pledge to our flag and country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Remain standing for our prayer, please.
Father, we thank you. We thank you for all that you've done for us, everything that you've done for this great city. Lord, if you didn't do anything besides what you sent your son to do for us on the cross, that would have been plenty, but you continue to bless us. Lord, your word says that if we will confess our sins, you are faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us of all unrighteousness. Please forgive us for the ways that we've strayed, for the ways that we've turned our back. Lead and direct our paths starting tonight with the way that we speak, with the decisions that are made. Lead and guide us into your righteousness, Lord. We love you so much. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Thank you, George. George, could you just take 1 minute and tell us and the audience what Storm is all about, if you would?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I don't know, I didn't research.
Up to the phone.
I didn't research the proper decorum. I probably should have, Mr. Mayor. I apologize.
It's a good start.
All right. So my name is George Schaefer, and I am a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. I have been sober for about 6.5 years. I'm also an Army veteran. I retired after 15 years. Back in September in 2013, I almost became one of the 22. And when I say the 22, that is the number of veterans that commit suicide every day. I got into recovery. I got into a program of recovery. My family stuck with me, stuck by me, and we evaluated through our process what was missing from our process of recovery. What could have changed just one thing that would have not allowed me to go up into that treehouse with a loaded shotgun. And we prayed about filling a gap somewhere. And that gap was meeting people on their crisis point of addiction, because addiction, mental illness, and suicide is not something that we discuss when we go out to dinner with our friends. It's not something that we discuss at the dinner table. There's a lot of shame. Understandably, there's a lot of shame. So we're out front, we're outright about our recovery, we're outright about our mistakes, we're outright about the way that Jesus stepped in and saved us when we needed him the most. So we meet people on their crisis point of addiction, provide them an individualized blueprint of recovery for both the individual and the family members, because they're suffering as well. And once that process is complete, we bring them back together and push them into the doors of the church, and we go help the next one.
Thank you, George. So if somebody out there in our viewing audience knows somebody that has a suicidal tendency or thought, or they themselves do, how would they get in touch with you or your organization?
So the best thing to do in that situation is to call the Veterans Crisis Hotline, or call the police. My wife, Meredith, and I are both chaplains with Oklahoma City Police Department, and we assist with situations like that. The police department will do a welfare call, and it's not to get anybody in trouble, it's not to get anybody arrested, it's not to get anybody hurt, it's just a welfare check. That would be the first thing. But if they wanted to utilize our services for addiction recovery, our website is storminc.org, or you can call 503-7442.
Great. George, thank you for the prayer, and thank you for what you do for our community.
Thank you guys for what you do.
Thank you, George.
I call to order our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting of January 21st. Do we have any public announcements or anything? No, nothing out there. Item number 3 is the consent agenda, items A and B. A is the minutes of the Public Works Authority meeting of January 7th, and B is the approval of the audit engagement letter with HBC CPA firm for 2019.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Submit your votes.
Oh, I wasn't here, so I assumed I didn't vote to approve the minutes, but I can, okay, sorry about that.
See the votes. Unanimous approval of the consent agenda. That being the last item on the Public Works Authority meeting, we are adjourned, and I will call to order our Guthrie Economic Development Authority meeting of January 21st. The consent agenda is item A, B, and C. A is the approval of the minutes of the Guthrie Economic Development Authority meeting of May 2nd, 2017. B is the approval of fiscal year 2020 budget amendments number 1 and 2, which amends the budget for the GEDA fund. And C is the approval of fiscal year 2019 year-end budget amendment number 9, which amends the budget for the GEDA fund.
So moved.
Entertain a motion. Is there a second? I'll make the second. Discussion. Any questions or discussion? Okay, submit your votes. Let's see the votes. Unanimous approval of consent agenda items A, B, and C of the Guthrie Economic Development Authority. And with that being the last item on that agenda, that we are adjourned from that meeting. One more. Call to order our Guthrie City Council meeting of January 21st. Second item on the agenda is discussion and possible action to appoint a qualified individual effective January 21st, 2020 to fill the vacant Ward 3 GPWA trustee and city council position for the term ending May 2021. If you recall, we have accepted the resignation of Councilman Thomas, Z. Thomas. We have approved a motion to have 3 individuals from the remaining 6 council members drawn at random, and they would be to be the nominating committee. The nominating committee would meet then with the applicants. In this case, there were 4 applicants, which was a wonderful thing to have. And the nominating committee spent at least an hour with each one of the candidates, approximately an hour with each one of the candidates, and had a very good interview process. And at the end of that process, considering their application, results of the interview, the nominating committee made a recommendation, and that recommendation is for Cheryl Paget, and it was a split recommendation. That's the recommendation now that goes before the council, and I'll entertain a motion to accept that
I
nomination.
make the motion to accept Cheryl Pageant's nomination.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion, please. Discussion opportunities for that motion.
Of the applicants, were the other applicants, you said you interviewed them all, was there any other applicants that seemed appealing, other than, because it being a 2-1 split?
The application process, I've talked to all the other 2 colleagues that were on that nominating committee, and I think we're in agreement that Ms. Pageant was the ace, the interview process. Any other discussion?
Well, I called, you had called me this afternoon.
Yes.
In regards to an email that I had sent to you. And we had discussion about it, and I also wanted to give Cheryl a call this afternoon as well and discuss the email that I had sent to you, knowing that that was going to be the nomination. But I do want to voice my opinion to the rest of the community on why or what my vote's going to be. And I'm just going to read the email that I sent to you aloud, and it says, Steve, I've been informed that your intent this evening is to nominate Cheryl for the Ward 3 open position, and I wanted to ask a few things of you, which you did comply with. Will you please read the agenda item as written and please allow discussion by the council prior to any nominations being made. I would ask that each of the members of the interview committee have the opportunity to speak if they so choose, and those who are not part of the interview committee be allowed to ask questions about the candidates, which you have done, and I greatly appreciate that. I ask this of you because I think it's important for the public to see and to be informed of the candidates of who applied and the process. In addition, I do want you to know that my vote will not be in favor of Cheryl. I have nothing against Cheryl. I think she's a wonderful lady. But I honestly feel nominating Cheryl is saying to the public, this is business as usual, and we do not care how you vote. The council is making a history of not allowing new blood in and recycling the old. Jason Smedley beat Z. Thomas, and when he left, Z was put back in. When Chuck left, Brian was put back in. Now Cheryl was also beat out of office, and you wish to put her back in. The general public has lost trust in our council, and doing this just solidifies that we do not care what they say, that the council is going to do what the council wants to do. This also makes the candidates who applied ask, why did they even bother applying if we're going to just put the same people back in office? This will also continue to make our applicant pool smaller in the future for future openings on council and on boards. We wonder why our community isn't growing, and it's because of our leadership. We have continued to cycle through city managers, and it's because our council is harsh, toxic, and unwilling to change. I refuse to be a part of the toxic culture, and please know that I will continue to voice my concerns and my opinions. I want growth for Guthrie in ways that only bringing in new blood, new ideas, and new expertise can do. Growth only happens when we get outside of our comfort zone. I would challenge you to get outside of yours and promote new people, new ideas, and not the ones that you know and feel comfortable with. Please note that I intend to share this email in full at tonight's council meeting. Thank you, James Long. And like I said, I did call Cheryl, and I value Cheryl, appreciate her, consider her a friend. But that is how I feel about the
Okay.
issue.
All right. Well, as one person on the nominating committee, I felt I voted for, obviously, Cheryl, and felt that of the four candidates, all of which were, you tip your hat to anybody that will step up and be interested and want to take a role on city council or on any of the commissions, and I salute all four of them. But as it was pretty clear for the three of us that Cheryl did the best on the interview process. I think that she has great skills and experience, and that's why I voted for her. I voted for a person that I thought would best represent Ward 3 as well as Guthrie, and that's where my perspective was. I'm sorry that you feel that the council has created a different environment, James, and I hope that you'll work hard to fix that. And I know I will, and I'm sure that our colleagues on the council will too. We have had a number of a change in leadership in not only in council but in other important positions in the city for various reasons. I don't think any of them relate directly to our work as a council. We have accomplished a lot. We have accomplished a lot over the last years, and I believe that is because of what this council and the administrative leadership, now represented by Leroy, but other city managers before them, have been able to accomplish and lead in our community. And I think we will continue to do that. And I would hope that there will be continued interest in applying for boards and commissions, as well as possible opportunities to be on city council. I would hope, as you and I have discussed, that every time when we have a campaign, that there are multiple people trying to putting their hat in that ring and campaigning for city council position, a mayor position, whatever. That's, I think, good for our community. That shows that people want to be involved and want to take leadership roles. But I salute the council at present for what they have accomplished and will continue to accomplish. Anybody else have any comments?
Were
before
the
we
other
vote?
candidates notified to not be here tonight because they weren't being?
No. All right, submit your votes. We have a motion and a second to confirm Cheryl Paget. See the votes. By a vote of 4-2, we have a new councilwoman, Cheryl Paget, and I believe that the judge is ready to give you the oath of office. If, Judge, do you have the words? Yes, I do. Have you, is it the condensed version?
It's the full version.
Oh, boy. All right.
On this side, okay. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Cheryl Paget,
Do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma,
and the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma,
and will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity,
and will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity,
that I have not paid or contributed,
that I have not paid or contributed,
either directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
any money or other valuable thing
any money or other valuable thing
to procure my nomination for election or appointment,
to secure my nomination, election, or appointment,
except for necessary and proper expenses
except for necessary and proper expenses
expressly authorized by law,
expressly authorized by law,
that I have not knowingly violated
that I have not knowingly violated
any election law of the state
any election law of the state
or procured it to be done by others in my behalf,
or procured it to be done by others in my behalf,
that I will not knowingly receive,
that I will not knowingly receive,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
any money or other valuable thing
any money or other valuable thing
for the performance or non-performance
for the performance or non-performance
of any act or duty
of any act or duty
pertaining to my office
pertaining to my office,
other than the compensation allowed by law.
other than compensation allowed by law.
And I further swear
And I further swear
that I will not receive, use, or travel upon
that I will not receive, use, or travel upon
any free pass
any free pass
or on free transportation
or on free transportation
during my term of office.
during my term of office.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My step? Yeah.
Item number 4 is the consent agenda, items A and B. A is the approval of the city council meeting of January 7th, and B is the confirmation of GPWA approving the audit engagement letter with HBC, the CPA firm auditing fiscal year 2019. I'll entertain a motion
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
Let's see the votes. Unanimous approval on consent agenda items A and B. Item number 5, discussion and possible action to approve resolution number 2019-17 to amend the City of Guthrie Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual adopted by resolution number 99-15 to modify the drug and alcohol-free workplace policy. Kristen?
So in 2018, Question 788 was passed, which legalized medical marijuana. And more recently, August 2019, the Unity Bill was implemented that also addressed medical marijuana. So with that said, our policy didn't address medical marijuana whatsoever. So that was obviously the catalyst for taking a look at this policy and making some changes that we felt would more align it with the new laws that we're faced with here in Oklahoma. So there were a couple of primary policy changes, a few administrative changes, a couple of small language changes, but I'll kind of hit on some of the big primary differences between the two policies, between the policy that's implemented now and the proposed policy. So we are going to implement conditional job offers with pre-employment drug screening. We are going to we added some language in the policy that addressed safety-sensitive positions, which by addressing safety-sensitive positions, we're more able to leverage the changes that were implemented in the Unity Bill. So by implementing safety-sensitive positions within the city of Guthrie, we can drug test those that are in those safety-sensitive positions, and the use of medical marijuana would not be permitted in those particular positions. Under the post-accident testing, we had post-accident previously, but with the assistance of the FOP, we added a couple of additional items in there, including post-collision and post-deadly force. And then we addressed medical marijuana specifically in a couple of places in the policy, of course, under safety-sensitive. And then we also added a provision under prohibitions, which prohibits employees from using medical marijuana or any marijuana, of course, at work. It also prohibits the possession of medical marijuana while at work on the premises or utilizing city, like a city vehicle. And then finally, under responsibilities, we added the responsibility that the employees are not permitted to be under the influence of any medical marijuana, even if they're a license holder.
Questions from council?
So we have positions that they are not allowed to be, even a card holder, they can't use medical marijuana at all?
That's correct. And the Unity Bill actually allowed that to happen. So when 788 was passed, it was pretty broad. It said that, if you're a medical marijuana user, you're a medical marijuana user. And then for us to treat you differently because you're using medical marijuana would be discriminatory. Well, the Unity Bill, whenever that was passed and implemented in August, it kind of gave employers a little bit more clarity on that and allows us to designate specific positions that are within, that fit
Some
a
are okay and
definition
some aren't
underneath
okay.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, that fit that definition would be allowed to be safety sensitive, and therefore any use of marijuana, medical or not, wouldn't be permitted in those specific positions.
And we have those positions already outlined? So we've already identified what those positions are?
We do. So the policy defines it, and then outside of the policy, I've worked with our division directors to determine which job descriptions fit underneath that safety sensitive.
I would think clearly police, fire department would be in that role, EMS.
Yep,
Okay. Generally speaking, people that are driving some kind of motorized vehicle?
that's correct, yep.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, so now this is a change that everybody's going through because of the legalized marijuana
Yeah,
issue.
we're probably a little bit behind the curve, honestly. We probably should have, looked at this policy in 2018, but here we are.
Okay, all right, good. Any other questions?
So it pretty much follows the alcohol scenario as well, right?
No?
It's a little bit different.
I know that. That's why I'm asking the question.
It is a little bit different because there's not going to be of course, anybody under the influence of alcohol while at work not permitted. Same thing with medical marijuana. So they're similar in that way. They're different because, if I work in a safety-sensitive position and I'm using alcohol off-site, and as long as I'm not under the influence at work, it's permitted, right? But with any marijuana, there's no way to test specifically when you consumed the drug. So I can't use it anytime, right? Because even if I smoked medical marijuana the evening before, reported to work in a safety-sensitive position, and got random drug tested, for example, then I would test positive for marijuana. So regardless of my license status, I would be reprimanded in accordance to the policy.
What's the reprimand?
So we didn't change the reprimand process. So there's up to and including termination, but we would consider somebody that has like a really good work history. We would allow them if they wanted to, and everybody was in agreement to do so, we would allow them to enroll in like a rehabilitation process. And the policy outlines what that rehabilitation, what like milestones.
But how do you rehab somebody if he's taking
Yeah.
medical marijuana
You
for
come back
a
with
medical
it.
reason?
Come back with a
How do you rehab that?
unpositive, non-positive test in 12
So-
weeks.
That's a, I mean,
So you, I
really?
mean,
Yeah.
so you, just like you
Yeah,
would
and do
rehab
you-
any other drug. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna notify our employees that regardless of your medical marijuana status, if you fall into the categories of one of these positions, then
You
you're
can't
not
do it.
permitted to use medical marijuana.
Okay.
So if they would have tested positive and they wanted to go through that rehabilitation process and we were in agreement to that, then it would just be the same process as anybody else. Like, for example, if I tested positive for cocaine.
Okay. Okay.
Where you have an in-house,
The rehab would be third party.
third party, okay.
What about opioids and
Yeah,
the
what
like?
about that?
Are you testing for that under the same guise?
We do, yeah.
That's gonna
So
be coming up.
opioids are tested as well, and they're treated similarly if there's a positive. So we'll take a non-safety sensitive position just to make it easy. So me, for example, if I tested positive for an opioid, then the person facilitating the test, which is a third party, there's a medical review officer. That medical review officer would then contact me and say, we see that you tested positive for opioids. If I can produce a doctor's note stating that I was under the
Right.
influence of opioids for a medical reason, then that would come back to the employer as a negative. So I would never, as the employer, know whether they had opioids in their system. The same is true for medical marijuana unless they're in that safety-sensitive position.
So in the safety-sensitive position on the opioids, the same thing applies?
No. They're treated differently under the law.
Well, it just seems silly to me to try to rehab somebody. The rehab seems silly.
It's a second
Okay.
chance, brother.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's come back, stop
Yeah.
taking it and keep your job.
Cleaned up.
There you go.
Otherwise, you look for another
Got 2
job.
weeks.
Okay, thank you very much. Submit your votes, folks.
We haven't made a motion yet.
We didn't have a motion?
No.
Not a motion on that,
Make
okay.
a motion to
Sorry.
approve as written.
I'll second
We have
that.
a motion and a second now, I'm sorry, to approve a resolution 2019-17. Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
We have 5-1 approval, 6-1, I'm sorry, approval to move forward with, approve the resolution 2019-17, amending our policies regarding our drug and alcohol workplace policy. Item number 6, discussion possible action to adopt ordinance number 3327, which is amends ordinance number 2967 to expand acts prohibited in section 4-326, discrimination based upon familiar status, sex orientation, gender identity. Are you presenting that one also? No?
No, city clerk will.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, this is simply just amending the current fair housing ordinance to include the protected classes as identified in federal law. Yep. And it's also part of our CDBG requirement, to make sure that these classes are inside our ordinance.
Okay. Any questions? Kim? Okay, submit your votes.
Make a
So
motion.
moved.
Golly.
Second that.
Sorry. Thank you for correcting me. We have a motion and a second now. Now, is there any other questions? And submit your votes.
All votes are in.
Unanimous approval to adopt ordinance number 3327. Sorry about that, folks. Item number 7, discussion possible action on a letter of ODOT confirming whether or not the city of Guthrie has any objections to a disposal of excess right-of-way along Highway 77. Tenny?
believe you all have in your packet, the copy of the letter that we received, from ODOT in subject disposal of surplus right-of-way. There's a small triangle section out at the intersection of Sooner and Division is the property or the right-of-way that they're looking at, surplusing. What they're asking is for a letter to, whether or not we have any objections of them surplusing the property. We've checked with our city engineer, our own staff on board. We don't see any reason that we should object to the surplus of the property out there. We currently we mow it. ODOT's, it'd just be less maintenance on our part right now. There's still going to be enough right-of-way for any improvements to that intersection if we do desire to in the future.
Okay. Do we not want the property? I'm just going to ask.
I don't see no reason that we would need it. We've got the right-of-way, enough right-of-way in that area to do any improvements that we would need.
Okay. Any other questions?
So how's it going to be disposed of? Do we know?
In the letter, I believe it states in the letter that it would be
Read the letter.
disposed of by sealed bid,
That's what, okay.
publicly sealed bid.
I read that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion then to, got it right this time,
So moved.
to
Second.
allow,
Well, the motion will need to be to confirm whether or not, so the motion would be to write a letter not stating.
Saying that we don't have
not-
objection?
That we do
Okay.
not.
Okay.
I'll make that motion. We don't have an objection to it.
okay. The motion is that we do not have an objection then to disposal of this right away. There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes. See the votes. Unanimous approval then to submit a letter to ODOT saying we do not have any concern about their disposal of that property as identified. Item number 8, city manager report.
I do have a report tonight. It looks like our camera may have got off angle there a little bit. It's not quite nice on the screen. Thank you, Chris. At our retreat, we didn't spend much time talking about the vision, mission statement, and core values. Those were originally adopted back in May of 2010 by a motion of the city council. They've been reviewed periodically since then. In my reading of the version from 2010, the vision and the core values are worded identical to what they were in 2010. I didn't look at it each year, but somewhere along the way, the mission statement was added. I won't read these. I'm assuming they've not changed so that when we get through this strategic plan process and actually put the final plan together, unless I hear different, we'll use the same vision, same mission statement, and the same core values that have previously been adopted and reviewed by the city council. So if you all have suggestions or want us to look at any wordsmithing of those items, the vision, mission statement, or core values, let me know. At our retreat, we've not gone over this for a while, so I thought it would be worthwhile. We divided our strategic priorities into 4 categories: infrastructure, economic development, planning/code enforcement, and building codes, and then 4th is quality of life. I will let you know that we have a meeting scheduled with Myers Engineering on Thursday, the 23rd, to review status of all the projects they're involved in. Hopefully, there's a lot of projects out there. Hopefully at our next council meeting, we can give you an update and status report on that list of projects that the engineer is assisting us with. On the infrastructure, each one of these, I went back and identified a primary lead person. That will be the one that takes ownership of that project. and will be responsible to move it forward. So number one was design, fund, and construct a new wastewater treatment plant. Of course, Tenny Maker will take the lead on that and will be assisted, of course, by outside consulting engineering. Remove and backfill the deteriorated Harrison Street Bridge. Again, Tenny Maker is the lead person on it. We have submitted a grant application through EGCOG, depending on the, whether one or two or both of those applications are funded will dictate how we address that going forward. Implement life-extending maintenance improvements to the city's 4 water towers, and we are working on some projects there that we'll report on probably at the next meeting. Fund and maintain an annual street overlay and bridge maintenance program, and we talked about at the meeting that, for example, if you have $400,000 a year for overlay, we would do a $200,000 overlay project. We take $200,000 and set it aside each year to build up funds to do a large project. So maybe every 4 or 5 years, you could actually do a significant or large project. And then the in-between years, you would do just general overlay projects to extend the life of our streets. Replace the roof on City Hall. The way we are structured, our HR officer and administrative service director is over the facility maintenance at City Hall, so Kristen will take the primary lead on that. And then apply to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board for a grant to repair the spillway at Guthrie Lake. Again, Tenny is in the lead on that. And if you will notice as we go through this, Tenny is a very busy individual. We do let him have weekends off. On economic development, the 3 under economic development was developing the existing 80-acre city-owned site into a shovel-ready industrial park. And this one has different elements to it. Tenny will be the lead person on the actual physical elements, but preparing for marketing of that industrial park, then Shonda will take the lead on those elements that have to do with marketing the industrial park once it's shovel-ready. Development and implement a downtown business recruitment development plan. Again, on this one, Shonda will take the lead and will be assisted, and Dan Kassick will be involved in that one. Initiate efforts to recruit partners to develop a shopping center on I-35. Shonda will be the lead person on that project. Under planning code enforcement and building codes, update select elements of our comprehensive plan. We didn't fund to update the entire plan, but we wanted to look at our zoning code and update and amend the zoning code. We wanted to update, amend our building design standard ordinance as previously amended, finalize the update of our city boundary map, and then the primary lead on this, of course, will be Dan Kassick, our planning director. Number 2 is develop and implement a city annexation plan. And Dan, with the assistance of our city attorney and our engineer, will be working on the annexation plan, and Dan will be the primary responsible employee. Develop and implement a downtown building maintenance revitalization plan to ensure minimum maintenance standards are enforced in the Guthrie Central Business District and the National Landmark Historic District. Again, Dan will take the lead on that, but we will be dependent upon city attorney for some legal advice on that. I will make you aware, because of the National Disaster Declaration, there was a grant to the Economic Development Council, which is an international organization, and they are going to fund a consultant that would come to town for a week that specializes in downtown maintenance and revitalization, and we put in for utilization of that consultant to come spend some time with us and stakeholders to maybe give us a fresh perspective and some ideas on what we might do to get where we want to be relative to downtown and it being revitalized and maintained. And so we have been working towards that. Quality of life, enhance the existing soccer, baseball, and softball facilities in Guthrie. The ad hoc sports committee, facility task force to develop a moderate cost action plan to enhance the sports facilities, either through enhancements to existing facilities or construction of new facilities and a multi-step plan. Of course, the task force and Tenny will take the lead on that. Plan and implement an annual ADA sidewalk assessment improvement program. And again, Dan will take the lead on it, but of course, he will be assisted by Public Works and Tenny and his crew. So next steps is, one, to designate the responsible party for each strategic priority. We've done that. Then establish milestones for each priority, significant events, stages in the progress towards completion, establish target dates to achieve established milestones if applicable, establish a budget and identify a funding source, and then develop a format to keep the city council and the general public informed of the progress of each of these priorities. I have come up with a format for staff. When I get to the next screen, it'll be larger. But what I've done is did an example on the industrial park priority. And I've laid out the milestones in this section, and then responsible parties here, and then I talk about the target dates and the cost and the funding source. And maybe to go through it, this is a little larger, I think. I took the other sides off, but we're working. First thing we need to do, at one time the site was surveyed, but we need a survey not just showing the property boundaries, but we need to know the contours or elevations out there, the easements, what part, if any, is in the floodplain, what's in the wetlands, and et cetera, and any existing improvements. We'll need a geotechnical report, soil profile, compaction rate, water table level. Those are all questions that will be asked by a prospective buyer to put an industry out there. These are all things we will need as we get ready to say we've got a shovel-ready site. I don't recall if a phase one environmental assessment was done at the time it was purchased, but it's probably dated enough. We'll probably need to update that phase one study. And then all likelihood it won't be needed, but if necessary, a phase two environmental assessment. Any industry looking at buying that's going to ask for that. We need identification of any height restrictions due to airport flight paths, so that we know. I don't think we'll run into any problems, but we'll want that documented. We'll want a zoning letter documenting the zoning classification of the property. We'll need to subdivide the property into various size lots. So we'll be coming to you with recommendations on a plat with roads, utility easements, and setbacks. And what we will look at doing initially is something very basic to give us flexibility so that if you have somebody need 10 acres or 20 acres, you can put those parcels together. And then we'll need subdivision regulations. A lot of industries, when they look to go into an industrial park, if they are the type of industry that maintain and manicure their lawns, they're not going to go into an industrial park that allows people to store stuff outside and becomes unsightly So it's just like if you buy in a housing subdivision, you want to know that there's covenants there to protect your investment. So we will go through a process and bring to you the covenants for that industrial park subdivision, and Dan and Shonda will be working on those. We'll get the property appraised once the improvements are done so that we can set a market value and action by the city council to establish that initial asking price. And then we will look at input from the council on land price adjustment standards, or what our incentive policy is, whether we'll discount land price, look at property tax exemptions, what other financial incentives will we do the recruiting industry out there. In some towns, some of the factors that we built into, if we were going to provide it as an incentive less than fair market value, would be inclusive of things like the number of full-time jobs created, what is the annualized payroll, what type of industry it is, the amount of capital investment they're making in the community. The more they invest and have their dollars or skin in the game, the more likely they're to stay in the community. What is the history of the industry? What is the current market stability for that type of industry in the current market? So those are some of the trends we would look at to come up with some kind of sliding scale or ideal of how we might reduce from market value to a lower price as an incentive. Then pertinent utilities, we'll need to make sure we identify location in relation to site, their capacity and redundancy. It's not good enough to just say there's an electric line out there. We got to be able to document what the capacity is, whether it's redundant. Many industries now, they're not satisfied with one electric service. If that leg of electric service goes down, they want redundancy so they don't lose power and they keep manufacturing. So we'll need to look at what is the capacity, are those utilities redundant, especially when it comes to electricity and sometimes even natural gas. Off-site utilities, we'll do a cost estimate and time frame to extend them. And pertinent utilities that I typically identify are electrical, natural gas, water, sewer, high-speed internet, and fiber optics. And then, of course, we've already said we're going to extend the sewer, water, natural gas to the park. And then we'll also have to look at, are there any site improvements? I worked in the community one time, we had an industrial park, they were very proud of it, and then we figured out when I got there, if you give it to an industry, they were going to have to spend about $1.5 million to level the site before they could even start building. Well, we want to make sure that our site is graded to the point that someone could get started construction rather quickly. And then whatever basic internal roads improvements we need, then detailed construction drawings and specs so we can put it out for bids to do those utility improvements we've already agreed to, bid documents, bid process, bid award, construction staking and oversight will have cost. And then the marketing piece, Shonda and Dan will work up, will be show the site location and access to major highway transportation routes, show all pertinent site and utility considerations, show all pertinent workforce and labor pool demographics for our community or the labor shed that serves that industrial park, and then show the community characteristics like workforce training available through VOTAC, education that's available through the local school system, through adjacent universities. So it's more than just running a utility line out to the industrial park. And that's a framework. Now, not all of the ones I've assigned each one of these to the various staff members to do something similar to this, showing the milestones that we need to accomplish, who's responsible, and then a projected timeline and a budget. So that's kind of the framework. Staff has started the process of putting those together. Then we had two special studies that we'll be working on this year. One is a 10-year utility service master plan for the Public Works Authority, both operation and maintenance. Primary lead on this will be Tenny, but we'll have to have engineering input. But identification of facility and equipment improvements to maintain quality service, and that includes all of our utilities, a timeline and cost estimate of facility and equipment improvements, a projection of future operating and manpower costs, and then a projected 10-year utility rate structure to fund the operation improvements, and that will include our wastewater treatment plant, our water collection system, which includes lift station manholes, our water treatment plant, water distribution system. It's inclusive of water towers and pump stations, stormwater drainage plan, and garbage collection disposal service, inclusive of our convenience center. So we want to do a 10-year study so that we know if we're going to operate as an enterprise fund or similar to a business, our public utility, what improvements do we need to make to get our utility where it needs to be, all of these services, and what kind of rate structure do we need to fund that? And so that's a report that we bring back to the city council so they know, hey, you know, if we don't want brown water and we want to replace all the water lines in a 10-year period, this is what it will cost, and this is what the rates are going to have to be to do that. Now, you know, we may have more there than we can bite off at one time, but at least we know what the big picture is, and then we can do it in incremental pieces, but it's a laid out plan. And the other one is an analysis of the options for the swimming pool in Highland Park, and look at it to determine the practical remaining life expectancy of the existing pool, and then look at options to replace the existing pool, inclusive of not limited to identification of what amenities would, if we were to replace the pool to serve our existing and future pool patrons, what amenities today's standard, like in today's world, you do shallow depth entry. You don't just go to the side of the pool and jump in what I call a cement pond. And then the alternatives and cost estimates to construct and operate that new facility with the desired amenities, and then explore partnership options with the YMCA, the Guthrie Public Schools, and others. A lot on there. The other thing we're looking at is administrative goals, and those are assigned by the city manager under my authority. And the purpose of the administrative goals are, one, the day-to-day operations to provide and enhance established basic city services, to implement projects and programs funded by the 2020 city budget adopted by the city council, so we carry out your budget plan, to supplement the efforts of the city council's strategic priorities, and then to provide active growth. Some general comments on the department head's administrative goals. Primary responsible for management of the day-to-day operation and delivery of basic services falls on the department head. They will be responsible for each city council strategic priority where they're designated as the lead party, and they'll do all those steps that we talked about for each one of those priorities. And then they're primarily responsible for assigned department 2020 administrative goals, something that has been a little bit of an issue, but it will be clearly made, pointed out there by delegation of responsibilities to the subordinates is acceptable and encouraged. However, responsibility for completion remains the sole responsibility of the department head. So if I got somebody who works for me and I assign them this, I can't come back to city manager 6 months and say, well, I signed that, somebody didn't get done. Well, that's too bad, because it's your responsibility. And then each department head will be evaluated at the conclusion of the 2020 on their performance and outcomes. And I've started the process, but we've had a few things, seems like always come up. But to give you some idea, like for myself, recruitment, selection of a qualified accountant, special projects officer. In Kim's area, we are doing a redesign update of our city website. Some of them under Tenny, of course, is completion of the Mineral Wells Park project, the grant application to Oklahoma Water Resources Board, remove the bridge at Harrison and Wentz. So those are some ideals of what those administrative goals will be, and hopefully, if you stay tuned to the next show, next week we will have more detail, and we'll try to bring this forward each time. Hopefully, 2 weeks from now, we can kind of give you updates on our capital improvement project, so you know where we're at, and then continue moving forward on this so that we can keep it in front of you and keep our emphasis on the priorities that you've identified.
Sounds like we need to clone Tenny, too.
I agree.
Tenny covers a lot of territory.
He does, he does. Well, thank you, Leroy, for, putting together this, the presentation that reflects the priorities that the council made in our strategic planning retreat, as well as obviously putting some meat on the bones, and also the developing of that template for tracking the various milestones. I think it obviously reflects there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that you don't see in a couple sentences of a goal or an initiative that we sometimes throw up on the screen. There's about 10 or 12 things that have to happen behind the scenes, and so this certainly points that out, and appreciate that. Really, really good, good presentation. Any other comments? Okay. All right. Number 9 is comments from members of the City Council. I think I'll start with our newest councilwoman, Cheryl.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to all of the council members that supported my nomination and appointment to the council so that I can continue to serve the people of Guthrie. That is my pleasure, and thank you very much.
Okay. Councilman Channel.
I'm good.
Okay. Councilman Bothroyd.
I'm good today.
Okay. Councilman Taylor.
Thank you, staff. I know it's a lot of hard work. I know helping Leroy get all this stuff kind of lined up. And yes, Tenny probably does need to clone himself 2 or 3 times. Looks like he's going to have a lot to do. But anyway, tomorrow I will be going to Topeka on Amtrak. So if you have any comments you want me to take to those people up there, please send me a text or call me or whatever and let me know.
You're actually going on the train?
Yes. Well, no, we're going to ride up in a car. I wish we could ride the train.
Okay.
That'd be kind of nice. But I am going up there tomorrow morning. So
Okay. Good.
for that, thank you.
Councilman Long.
I just want to welcome Cheryl to the council.
James.
So look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Good. Councilman Case.
Congratulations, Cheryl.
Thank you.
City staff, you do awesome work. Tenny, you're amazing. So keep it up, guys. Thanks.
Okay. I'd just like to congratulate the winners of the various awards that were given out at the chamber meeting last week, celebration last week. Individuals and businesses that are a significant part of our community, and I think they deserve to be recognized again. Oklahoma State Bank was the recipient of the Business of the Year. Kevin Kraft and State Farm was the Small Business of the Year winner. CASA, which is the Court-Appointed Special Advocacy for Children, was the Nonprofit of the Year. Abby Ropp was the Volunteer of the Year. Jason Reese was the Citizen of the Year, and Jeff Chappell received the Lifetime award, achievement award. So congratulations to those 6. Again, a significant part of our direction, our community. Also, we had Martin Luther King parade yesterday, and that was excellent. Had really good participation, a nice crisp morning for it to happen. And actually, on Sunday before that, we had Martin Luther King celebration at Generations Church, and also the biggest turnout that we apparently have ever had, according to Reverend Hammonds. So that was great, and thanks to Generation Church for sponsoring or providing the space and sponsoring that program on Sunday and the reception on Monday. And of course, I know that I don't have to tell you this, but just to reinforce, we do have a little program that's going on February 1st. It's called Taste and Tell, and it has something to do with food. And it is wonderful food prepared by a multitude of churches. I don't know, Evelyn Nephews, if you want to come up and say anything here, but a multitude of churches in the community get together and they put on their best dish of the church, and it is magnificent, magnificent food, all you can eat for $10. And it's at the fairgrounds, and I don't know exactly when it starts.
11:30.
11:30, thank you, I knew you'd have that.
Recognize Reverend Andrew Gilstrap. He's the pastor of United Baptist Church in Seward, Oklahoma. He's been there for 43 years. And we're also going to recognize Mrs. Helen Baker, who's an educator here in the Guthrie Public School System, and she's retired. So we're going to recognize both of those people, and y'all come. You all
Okay,
know
good.
exactly what to do.
Good, yeah, just eat,
Just
just
show
eat,
up.
enjoy.
Bring your wallet.
It's great,
And
it's
let me
great.
tell y'all this, because he's been so modest. The mayor's been so modest. He was also our parade marshal for the Martin.
Thank you, I was honored.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, item number 10, request approval to convene to executive session for purposes of discussing employment, hiring, so on and so forth. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor, submit your votes. The votes. By a vote of 5-1, 6, I'm sorry, 6-1. Golly. We will move into